The moment I realized something was wrong wasn't when I saw the light in the woods. It wasn't even when the man opened the door to a house that should have been completely dark and empty. It was when I understood that whatever was out there wasn't acting alone, and I had just walked straight into the middle of it. Back then, I was working delivery full-time, mostly late nights, mostly alone. I'll call myself Ethan for privacy. I was terrible at sticking to a normal schedule. I'd always procrastinate starting my shift, pushing it later and later into the night until suddenly I was working from 10 p.m. to sunrise. That night was one of those nights. I had already been driving for about 3 hours when a new order came in. The time on my dash read 1:07 a.m. The pickup location was a small convenience store attached to a gas station just outside town. Easy enough. I pulled into the empty lot, went inside, grabbed the order, and headed back to my car. The cashier barely looked up from his phone. No other customers. Dead quiet. When I checked the bag in my driver's seat, I noticed something odd. The entire order was just one item, a single large bottle of cheap red wine. Normally that wouldn't mean anything. People order weird stuff all the time at night, but alcohol deliveries were always annoying. I couldn't just drop it and leave. I had to verify ID, which meant waiting for someone to answer the door. Still, money was money. I tapped Start Delivery. The address was about 15 minutes away, deep into a wooded part of town. Most of the surrounding area was forest, so nothing about that alone felt strange. What felt strange was the driveway. As soon as I turned off the main road, the pavement disappeared into uneven gravel and deep ruts, like the road hadn't been maintained in years. My headlights bounced wildly as my tires crawled over broken stones and potholes. Then the house came into view. It stood completely alone, a single, old structure surrounded by dark trees on all sides. No neighboring homes, no streetlights, no signs of recent upkeep, and no lights on inside. The only thing illuminating the place was my headlights washing over the front wall and porch like a pair of weak spotlights on a stage. I parked, turned off the engine, and stepped out. The silence out there felt heavy, not peaceful, empty. Every movement I made sounded amplified, gravel crunching under my shoes, my jacket shifting, my own breathing. I pulled my phone out and opened the delivery app, making sure everything was ready for the ID scan. That's when I noticed the light. Far out between the trees, maybe 100 feet away, a small white glow flickered faintly through the branches. At first, I assumed it was another house in the distance, maybe a porch light or a window shining through the woods. I didn't think much of it. I locked my car and walked toward the porch. There was no doorbell, so I knocked. The sound echoed strangely inside the house, hollow and empty, like knocking on an abandoned building. The knock traveled deeper than it should have. That should have been my first real warning. I waited. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, no movement. The only thing that felt off was how completely dark the house was, inside and out. No porch light, no glow from inside, just my headlights behind me. After about a minute, I finally heard movement from behind the door. Slow footsteps. The door creaked open. The inside of the house was pitch black. I could barely make out the silhouette of a man standing in the doorway. He was tall and thin, his face swallowed by shadow. The darkness behind him looked endless, like the house didn't have walls at all, only a tunnel of black stretching backward. I told him I just needed to check his ID for the alcohol. He nodded slightly. I think he smiled, but I couldn't be sure. His voice was low and gravelly when he spoke. Slow, calm. "Give me a second. I need my wallet." He left the door open and turned away, walking down a narrow hallway. After only a few steps, he disappeared completely into the darkness, swallowed by the black interior of the house. That's when the unease really hit me. Nobody lives in a house like that in total darkness. No lamps, no hallway lights, no glow from another room. Nothing. My instincts started buzzing. I glanced back toward my car, sitting alone in the gravel with its headlights cutting two pale beams into the trees. And then I noticed the light again. Except now, it was closer. I stared at the light in the woods. It was no longer distant or faint. It hovered between the tree trunks, maybe 50 feet away now, flickering slightly as if someone's hand was trembling while holding it. It wasn't mounted. It wasn't fixed. It was being carried. A slow chill slid down my spine. The forest itself remained completely silent. No footsteps, no snapping branches, no wind strong enough to move leaves. Just that single, floating glow watching me from the darkness. Then I heard something behind me. Soft, careful. The faint creak of floorboards from inside the house. I shifted my gaze back toward the open doorway. The hallway beyond the man's silhouette was still pitch black, but the sound was unmistakable now. Someone was moving closer to the entrance. Not rushing, not stomping, sneaking. My heart started pounding in my ears. My brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe the man was just coming back with his wallet. Maybe the light in the woods really was just another house. Maybe I was letting my imagination spiral. But the timing was wrong. Everything felt synchronized. The moving light outside, the quiet footsteps inside, like a trap slowly tightening. I took a small step backward off the porch. The wooden board creaked under my weight. The footsteps inside stopped instantly. That was all the confirmation I needed. I turned and ran. I sprinted across the gravel toward my car, nearly slipping as my shoes slid over loose stones. Behind me, I saw the light in the woods shift suddenly, darting sideways between the trees, no longer pretending to stay still. Something was moving fast out there now. I didn't look back again. I threw myself into the driver's seat, slammed the door shut, and twisted the key. The engine hesitated for a terrifying half-second before roaring to life. I peeled out of the driveway, gravel spraying behind me as I fishtailed back onto the main road. Only when the house disappeared in my rearview mirror did I realize how badly my hands were shaking. I pulled over a few miles down the road, my chest still tight, trying to steady my breathing. My mind kept replaying the image of that man vanishing into the darkness of his house, and the light drifting closer through the trees at the exact same time. It didn't feel random. It felt coordinated. I ended up driving back to the gas station and sitting there for a while under the bright lights, just trying to calm down. Eventually, I went home and ended my shift early. I couldn't focus on driving anymore. For days after that night, the unease wouldn't leave me. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still see that empty doorway and that hovering light in the woods. Finally, curiosity, or maybe fear, pushed me to look up the address. I wasn't trying to solve a mystery. I just wanted reassurance that I hadn't almost walked into something real. What I found made my stomach drop. The house had been officially abandoned for over 50 years. No registered residents, no recent utilities, no ownership activity, no permits, nothing. The surrounding land was listed as vacant woodland. There weren't supposed to be any nearby houses at all. That meant two things. First, the man who opened that door had no legitimate reason to be there. Second, the light in the woods wasn't coming from a neighbor's property. There was nothing else out there. No houses, no cabins, no roads. No reason for anyone to be standing in the trees with a flashlight at 1 in the morning, which means whoever was out there was there for me. I don't know what their plan was. I don't know if the man inside the house was working with whoever was in the woods, or if the house itself was some kind of bait. All I know is that if I had waited 10 more seconds on that porch, if my instincts hadn't kicked in when they did, I might not have driven away at all. Some deliveries aren't meant to be completed, and some places aren't meant to have addresses. Story 2. The first sign that something was wrong wasn't the noise. It wasn't the darkness. It was the way the dog suddenly froze and stared at the door like something on the other side was staring back. Dogs don't imagine things. They don't scare themselves. And when a dog that normally sleeps through thunderstorms suddenly looks like it's about to run for its life, you pay attention. I learned that the hard way. This happened back in 2019, when I drove up to my older brother's place to watch his dog while he was away on a short work trip. He was only going to be gone for 3 days, but Cooper, his German Shepherd mix, didn't do well in kennels or unfamiliar homes, so I volunteered to stay at the house instead. My brother always called it a cabin, but it was really just a normal-sized house hidden deep in the woods. No close neighbors, no streetlights, just trees in every direction and a long gravel driveway that disappeared into the forest. Peaceful during the day, unsettling once the sun went down. The first afternoon was normal. We hung out for a bit, caught up, grilled some food, and then he left around 3. Once he was gone, the place felt noticeably quieter, like the house itself had gone into standby mode. There wasn't much to do out there, no stores nearby, no cell service unless you stood near a certain window. Mostly just silence, trees, and the occasional distant bird call. After dinner, I decided to make a small campfire in the yard to enjoy the sunset. I brought Cooper out with me and we sat near the fire as the sky slowly faded from orange into deep purple. For about an hour, it was actually relaxing. But once the sun fully disappeared, everything changed. The woods went completely black. The firelight barely pushed back the darkness, and beyond its glow, the forest felt endless, like a wall of shadow watching us. The quiet became heavy, not peaceful, just empty. It didn't take long before the uneasiness crept in. Less than 10 minutes after sunset, I put the fire out and headed back inside. I told myself I was just being paranoid, but the truth was simple. Being alone in the woods at night didn't sit right with me. Inside, I stretched out on the couch with Cooper and put on a horror movie, almost laughing at the irony. The long drive had worn me out, though, and I kept drifting in and out of sleep. At some point, I woke up and immediately realized Cooper wasn't beside me anymore. I sat up and scanned the room. He was sitting by the front door, not laying down, not relaxed. Sitting upright, perfectly still, facing the door, staring. "Cooper?" I said quietly. His ears twitched, but his eyes didn't leave the door. I walked over and rested my hand on his side. His muscles were tense, not relaxed like he normally was when he was sleepy. I leaned forward and peeked through the peephole. Nothing, just darkness and trees. I cracked the door open slightly and leaned out, listening. No footsteps, no animals, no wind strong enough to make noise. I closed it and shrugged it off. Probably a deer or something passing through the yard. Cooper had a great nose. He likely picked up a scent I couldn't. He was young, alert, and protective. I trusted his instincts, but I didn't think much of it at the time. I finished the movie and eventually went to bed. The next morning was calm. Coffee on the porch, cool forest air, birds moving through the trees. Everything felt completely normal again. I even tried taking Cooper on a short walk, but I didn't go far. The woods were easy to get lost in if you weren't careful. That evening, the routine repeated itself. Dinner, couch, another movie. Cooper started out lying beside me, relaxed at first. But after about half an hour, he wandered off into the house. Then, out of nowhere, I heard him bark. Not playful, not alert barking at a squirrel. Deep, loud, aggressive. I jumped up and rushed toward the kitchen. Cooper was standing stiff near the counter, tail tucked, hair standing up along his back. His teeth were slightly bared as he barked toward empty air. There was nothing there. No movement, no shadows, nothing. I tried calming him down, speaking softly, putting a hand on his side. I eventually got him to stop barking, but the low growl never left his throat. Something had him scared. The kitchen window sat high above the counter, too high for him to even see outside. There was nothing in his line of sight. I guided him back to the living room and sat with him for a moment. That's when we heard it. A hollow tapping sound, coming from the kitchen. Not loud, not violent, just deliberate. Tap, tap. Cooper immediately started barking again. This time, I didn't try to stop him. My stomach tightened as I walked back toward the kitchen, every step slow and cautious. The tapping sounded like something hitting the outside of the window, light but intentional. I leaned toward the glass and looked outside. Nothing, just darkness and tree shadows. Now my nerves were fully awake. Was it an animal, a raccoon, branches shifting? Or was I just not used to how loud and strange the forest sounded at night? What bothered me most was Cooper's reaction. Animals don't panic without reason. By the time it hit 11, I decided to move into the bedroom instead. There was a small TV in there, and I figured changing rooms might help us relax. Cooper stayed close, ears up, constantly scanning the room. When I finally turned the lights off and got ready for bed, I let Cooper stay in the room with me and closed the door. I filled his water bowl and stepped into the shower. That's when everything escalated. Through the sound of running water, I heard several heavy thumps against the wall. Then Cooper started barking again, louder than before. I shut the water off instantly, threw on clothes, and rushed back into the bedroom. Cooper wasn't there. The bedroom door was open. My heart dropped. Cooper was smart, but opening doors wasn't something he normally did. I heard his barking echoing deeper inside the house. I ran into the hallway and saw the front door standing wide open. Cold night air poured inside. Then I saw Cooper sprinting away from the house, straight into the woods. I yelled his name and grabbed a flashlight from the closet before running after him. Within seconds, the trees swallowed us. And then, suddenly, Cooper's barking stopped. The forest went silent. The silence was worse than the barking. 1 second, Cooper was charging through the trees, sounding like he was ready to tear into whatever he'd found. The next, nothing. No footsteps, no growling, no branches snapping, just the faint whisper of wind sliding through the treetops above me. I froze in place, flashlight shaking slightly in my hand. The beam cut a thin tunnel of light through the darkness, revealing only trunks, fallen leaves, and tangled shadows. "Cooper," I called out quietly at first. No answer. I raised my voice and called again. Louder this time. My words disappeared into the woods like they'd been swallowed. Every instinct in my body was telling me something was wrong. Not the normal kind of fear you get from being alone in the dark. This felt sharper, heavier, like stepping into a space where you weren't supposed to exist. I took a few slow steps forward, scanning the trees, heart pounding in my ears. That's when I heard movement. Leaves rustled somewhere ahead of me. My breath caught. The sound moved closer, fast. For a split second, my mind flashed worst-case scenarios. A bear, a stranger, something charging straight toward me in the dark. Then Cooper burst out of the trees. He nearly slammed into my legs, skidding on the leaves as he stopped. His ears were pinned back, his tail tucked tight against his body. His eyes were wide with pure fear. He let out a small whimper and pressed himself against me. I'd never seen him like that before. He wasn't excited. He wasn't alert. He was terrified, and he kept staring back into the darkness behind him. Whatever he chased, it was still there. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed his collar and turned us both around, sprinting back toward the cabin as fast as my legs would carry me. Branches scraped against my arms, the flashlight bouncing wildly as I ran. The cabin lights finally came into view through the trees. I slammed the door shut behind us and locked it. Cooper immediately ran to the corner of the room and curled up against the wall, shaking slightly. His breathing was fast and uneven. My hands were shaking too. I called 911 first. Then I called my brother. I explained everything in a rushed, breathless blur. The barking, the door open, Cooper running into the woods, the silence, the way he came back terrified. Police arrived eventually, but by then there was nothing to find. No footprints, no broken locks, no clear signs of forced entry, just an open door and a very shaken dog. The officers suggested it was probably an animal, maybe a coyote, maybe a deer, maybe something else wandering too close to the cabin. But animals don't open doors, and animals don't move quietly enough to make a trained dog freeze in place like that. We stayed in a hotel for the rest of the night. My brother drove back early the next morning. There was never any official explanation. What haunts me most isn't the noises. It's the thought that someone had been close enough to the house to trigger Cooper's instincts, and bold enough to get inside. And whatever happened in those woods, in those few silent minutes when Cooper disappeared, I'm grateful I never had to see it myself, because whatever scared him that badly was close enough to come back. Story 3. I was driving home from a long shift just before midnight. I normally took the train, but I'd stayed too late, so I had no choice but to drive the empty rural roads. I was exhausted, not sleepy enough to pass out, but mentally drained, like every mile took effort to stay focused. About 40 minutes into the drive, I noticed a pickup truck pulled off on the shoulder. No lights, no one inside. It felt strange, but I assumed it was broken down. Less than 2 minutes later, I passed another car in almost the exact same condition, parked on the grass near the trees, abandoned and dark. That's when my unease started. A few minutes after that, something suddenly appeared in my headlights. I didn't even have time to react. My right tire ran straight over it. At first, everything seemed fine, but within a minute, I felt the car pulling. The tire was losing pressure fast. I pulled over and immediately realized how disturbing the coincidence was. Now I was the third car stopped on the same empty road. When I got out, I saw deep scrapes near the wheel and a rapidly flattening tire. I knew I'd need a tow. As I stood there, surrounded by trees and darkness, I felt extremely exposed. That's when I noticed movement down the road. A person was walking toward me near the tree line, staying just off the pavement. Something about the way they moved felt wrong, cautious, almost intentional. I got back in my car and started calling for help. The man reached the road and walked directly up to my window. He didn't speak. He just stared. His eyes made my stomach twist with fear. Every instinct screamed to leave. I put the car in drive and slowly pulled away, risking damage to the tire. 20 seconds later, I passed another car, this one with the door open and the interior light on. It looked like the man had come from there. I didn't stop. I made it to the nearest town and got help with the car. I tried to forget the encounter, telling myself it was just a strange coincidence. 4 days later, I saw a news article. 2 people had gone missing on the exact stretch of road I'd driven. Their cars were found abandoned. Both had tire damage caused by objects deliberately placed on the road. Witnesses reported a man seen walking near the tree line that night. My blood went cold. I contacted police and told them everything I'd seen. As of now, there are still no leads, no suspects, no trace of the missing people. Sometimes I think about how close I came to stopping completely. If I'd stepped out of the car instead of driving away, I might have been the third missing person.